is the clinical director and founder of the Center for Christian Life Enrichment. He's an ordained minister and has been in practice for over 25 years now. Rich, as you know, through Grappling with God, is in the process of publishing Grappling with God right now. And that is kind of the book summarizing the work we do here at the Center for Christian Life Enrichment. CLE, as we call it, is the practice we have up in Northbrook, and that's in Northern Illinois. So, without further ado, here is Rich presenting the material on 7 steps for more genuine friendship.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're glad that you could join us as we're going to spend a couple minutes just talking about one of the most helpful strategies or tips for having more meaningful and satisfying and nourishing relationships. What we're really going to be talking about is summarizing some of what I've written in the book, Grappling with God, which represents sort of the core curriculum of what we do here at the Center for Christian Life Enrichment. And really the big emphasis that we have is everything is centered and focused around our relationships. And not only our relationships with others, but our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with God. And so what we're talking about today is to just look at a number of steps that can help increase our level of peace, our level of confidence, and our experience of grace in our relationships. And we're working to deal with the fact that inevitably in life we struggle with worry, we struggle with anxiety, we all have insecurities, and we experience a sense of guilt and shame because we're never able to live up to the hopes and expectations that we have to be exactly who we want to be. And what we all generally are interested in is more faith. We want a deeper connection with God, with the transcendent, and we want to be able to face and confront some of the resentments and different barriers that we have in our relationships. So let's look at our first tip. And our first tip in deepening friendships is recognizing that it is critical that we share from the heart. At CLE, we talk about that feelings are the language of our heart. And we are looking at this relationships as a building block process. It's a developmental process in which you recognize that when you're attempting to communicate, we often communicate from our heads. And information is important. It's not bad. But what we're really looking for when we're talking about deepening our relationships with others is learning how to share from our hearts. And though many of us understand feelings and can talk about feelings, we don't really communicate as effectively as we could from our hearts by communicating our feelings. At CLE, we deal with 6 families of feelings. Sad, angry, scared are the painful feelings. Happy, excited, and tender are the pleasant feelings. And so the thing that's important about feelings is that feelings are indicators that show us where our deeper hungers are. For instance, if I was feeling hurt, by being able to identify and express to you that I was sad or that I was hurt, it would allow me to be able to recognize that I want more support. I need more, I need care, I need concern, I need understanding. Now, the way that you might give that to me, there's wide rooms of variety in terms of how that could happen. But ultimately, by being able to understand what I want from a feeling level, I'm able to identify what are the deeper hungers of my heart and to be able to then more effectively reach out to those. So one of the first steps in relationships, and again I want to stress that this is a developmental process, is that it is when as you and I begin to communicate at a heart level, not just at a head level, we're able to experience more meaning, more nourishment, more satisfaction with each other. And the thing that happens is that so often in relationships, there are going to be unpleasant feelings. There are going to be painful feelings. And by being able to identify those and learn to increase our level of comfort, we're then able to experience much more meaning resolution, conflict resolution. So let's look at our step number 2, staying in the here and now. So feeling focused and recognizing that you want to communicate at a relationship level from your heart The second thing you want to do is use your feelings to stay in the here and now. Very, very challenging for us today, for most of us, to be able to just connect meaningfully and intimately right here in the moment. And there's all kinds of things that happen that in between two people that are like temptations that take us out of staying with just talking with you and me in the moment. An example of this I had with my parents, where I recognized I would call them and often talk to them, but the connections that we had, I rarely left feeling like those connections were meaningful or satisfying as I wanted them to be. And one of the things I saw happen is that as a result of our phone conversation with my mom or with my dad, suddenly I would be learning about all these other people. I'd be getting the news updates from other family members. I'd hear about these kinds of details of what had happened in the town that I grew up in, and sort of like, you're almost reading the police blotter or something like that. And I found myself getting very frustrated and angry about that. Well, what I was angry about, anger is an emotion that tells me when I'm not getting what I wanted. And what I recognized that I wanted was a more meaningful connection, and more meaningful connections happened when I was able to set up some structure in my calls, and to just, what I did was I talked to my parents and I just said, hey, listen, when I'm talking to you, Mom, or talking to you, Dad, I want to connect with you and just talk about you and me in the moment. And don't necessarily need a lot of hear a lot of stories or all different kinds of things. I just want to talk about what's happening in the moment. So feeling focused and recognize the importance of trying to just talk about you and the other person and what's happening between you and the moment. This is a very important foundation. So we want this experience to be as interactive as it can be. Unfortunately, today we're not in a position to really have everybody talking. So to be interactive, what we'd like to try to do is suggest a little, what we're calling a web question, and to have you run a quick poll here. So you see the question up on your screen that's saying, what are some of the temptations that most often might take you out of the here and now? And we'd like you to just use your computer to pick one of the four choices that we've given you: the cell phone texting, social media, TV, small talk, gossip. And if you would just take a second to indicate your answer to one of those, what we're going to do is that we're going to then collect some of that data, and then as soon as we've had a couple more seconds for people to respond, here it is. You're going to see what some of the results are. Isn't it interesting? It's no surprise, is it, that in our age of technology that there would be cell phone and texting are just such common temptations that take us out of being present in the here and now, and those results are really what we would have expected in this day and age. So let's go to our third step. Be yourself. So we've talked about feeling focused and trying to communicate heart to heart with someone, trying to stay in the here and now and avoid the temptations. I mean, you recognize from even your answers to that just even though it seems so simple to send a text, it takes you out of really being present. But if I am feeling focused and I am in the here and now, if I'm not being myself, then I have a real problem. And so this is about being yourself, is our striving to be genuine and authentic. And in order to do that, what we need to do is be sharing with each other something that's true, something that's meaningful. And if you notice, when you talk with other people, there are different levels of meaning. And there's something, I can tell you, yeah, my car broke down, or I did this. I don't feel as much at risk. I'm just sharing with you more information. But if I'm telling you I'm really, I found out today, which I did, that another publisher voted not to publish my book, now I'm moving into an experience where I'm telling you something that's true, that's happening in the moment, and probably is going to result in you having a feeling as you listen to what I'm saying. There's a vicarious sense of connection. And so in your relationships, monitor the level to which you are willing to take risks, and notice the ways in which you avoid taking risks. Maybe telling old stories, going over the same old material, not doing anything new or vulnerable, and it's in the here and now. And that's going to increase significantly decrease your level of satisfaction. And so in your friendships, in your relationships, if you can be monitoring the level of satisfaction that you have, it's going to be very, very helpful because it's going to allow you to then course correct and make some of these changes. So some of the things on the slide you see that it's very important to avoid the tendency to preach and teach, give advice, talk about others, and just get involved in meaningless chatter. Those things are going to decrease our satisfaction. Let's go to our next step. Step number 4, ask meaningful questions. That what we're really trying to do when you're in a relationship with someone, you want to be trying as much as you can to be paying attention to yourself, but also feeling a sense of care and concern about the person that you are in a relationship with, that you're talking to. Meaningful questions help us to engage in a more genuine and authentic way. Take an interest in the person that you're talking to. Notice how the difference between when you're just sort of listening superficially and when you're really listening as if, you know, what the other person is saying matters to you. This is, again, when we go back to our previous slide, we talk about the fact that, you know, what are the things that tempt us to take us out of the here and now. This is a classic thing. When you're talking to someone and asking questions, have you noticed how often when you meet a new person, you within seconds forget what their name was? And that happens to me all the time. And when I track it back and I look at it, I realize one of the problems is that I'm so nervous about what this person thinks of me. Are we connecting? Do they like me? That I can't even pay attention in that moment to what it is that they're saying and who it is that I'm actually talking to. So it requires a shift in our perspective. I don't want to lose myself and just have my life all be about you. I want there to be a mutual interaction. But when I'm interacting with you, if I can be thinking about questions that I'm genuinely interested in the answer to, and I'm asking those things of you, it's really going to encourage us to have a much more satisfying and meaningful example. Okay, let's go to our next step. Step number 5, listening well. So of course it makes sense that if you're asking meaningful questions, learning how to listen to what people answer is going to be very, very important. I think this is one of those concepts where if you thought about doing this workshop and putting together an outline, probably you would have thought that listening is going to be a significant part of really having a meaningful connection. We all know that conceptually, and yet the truth is a good listener is really a special gift. It's an art form, but it's also a skill. So I think some people may be more gifted than others at listening. Maybe those are the people that go into the helping professions or whatever. But it is a skill, and a skill means that it is something that we can practice. It's something that we can learn how to do more and more effectively. So in listening well, it's very important that you pay attention to yourself and the other person. That what you're trying to do is listen for not only the content in what they're saying, but you're also wanting to listen to the deeper truths about what is underlying the surface. So you may be talking to someone and you're asking how they're doing, and they're going through some sort of report or review, but then you recognize that at a deeper level you sense that there's something else going on. Now, what you're probably listening for is learning how to listen for feelings, for emotions, and not just the content. Sometimes I ask myself, what is not being said? So I say to someone how you're doing, and I get, an update and a cheery report. But at the same level, I'm not hearing about anything they're struggling with. I'm not hearing about anything that they're vulnerable with. So maybe I might go back and use a question to draw someone out. Take an interest in them and assume that there's probably more that they either want to talk about or need to talk about. And you being a good friend and being in that relationship, you could be able to facilitate that by asking good questions and learning how to do that and listen well. So we want you to interact with us again. We're going to put up our second web question. And if you notice on your screen, the question is, what are the biggest barriers that you find that impede your ability to listen well? So if you look at those 4 choices, worrying about what others are thinking, worrying about whether others like you, getting caught up in the details, interrupting or responding before the person is done talking, would you please just make a choice of one of those, and we'll give you a couple seconds to just kind of think about that. But one of the things when you think about in your mind, just imagine when I ask you, well, there are the results already. Wow, well, worrying about what others are thinking, that would be my number one as well. It's just such a big distraction. And then, well, look at that, interrupting before another person's talking. I didn't see that at the bottom, but that's actually the most common by half of the people said interrupting. And that, but now here's the thing that's interesting about interrupting. I just want to sort of comment on that for a second. Really, the problem is not so much with interrupting, because when you are really engaged in a conversation and meaningfully interacting with someone, there is a give and take, an ebb and flow that is very, very important. And some of us who grew up with rules that we were never supposed to interrupt really inhibits our ability to be alive and have a dynamic engagement. Where interruption is really the problem is when someone is not listening well and paying attention to what the other person is saying. So I think that's a very interesting point. But let's go to our 6th point. Staying clear and current. Now this is one of the big things for us at CLE. We really recognize that all relationships have conflict. Conflict is normal. It is an essential part of any kind of an alive relationship. You tell me you have a relationship with no conflict, I, to be honest with you, don't think of that as a very deep relationship, or the relationship is kind of dead. If you have no conflict, you have no intimacy. And so being clear and current is, this is how we use these words. Clear means that when I'm clear with someone, I don't have any unexpressed resentments, hurts, upsets. Clear can also be something where sometimes if you're like me, I withhold affirmation or praise or recognition that I might normally, share with someone. I am not clear with you if I have not expressed my love for you, my care for you, my gratitude, the importance of you in my life. So sometimes people get clear mixed up with, like, it's only bad things when I'm mad at you. No, it's not. Clear is around saying that I am with you. You don't have to worry about stuff unsaid that I'm not communicating to you. So what we need to do in this, well, let me just define current before I move on. So clear is that sense of having no unfinished business between the two of us that could include affirmation as well as confrontation. Current means that you are up to date with what is happening in each other's lives. This is something that is an ongoing need in every relationship. And if you envision in your mind during this time a relationship or two, hopefully you are, that you're wanting to work on or improve, maybe with your spouse, maybe with your kids, maybe with a colleague at work, a friend, a family member, something like that, you need to expect and express. Expect that there is going to be upset and learn how to express your way through it. We need to be able to share our upset. And you know what? The power in a relationship is when you can do it sooner versus later. The sooner that you can talk about what's going on and develop the skill and the ability, the tenacity, the strength to be able to resolve conflict quickly, this is a very advanced skill. Most of us are not comfortable with conflict. We try to avoid it. But unfortunately, our strategy for trying to avoid conflict usually involves us repressing it. And when we repress it, it builds up, and then it becomes a bomb, which is going to eventually explode. Many of the people that come to see us as in their relationships, because they have never learned to expect conflict, so they've never learned how to get clear and stay current with someone and express whatever it is that they're feeling, positive or painful, in the moment. And so you really want to not let things build up, and you want to stay current and up to date with what is happening in each other's lives. I like to think of it as a little bit of an accounting metaphor. Keep short accounts. Don't let things build up. Don't let unfinished business happen. There was a relationship of mine early on when I was in the ministry, my first boss actually, that his name was Phil James. And Phil and I had a very competitive relationship. It was brutal to have been my boss. I was young, I was cocky, I thought I knew everything. And this guy was a saint in terms of how he dealt with me. But as young people in the ministry, young Christians, we just really did not know how to resolve conflict. Well, we worked together, and it was painful, it was tense, but we never really talked about it. And then one day, about 2 years into the relationship, he and I just basically had it out. We had just like kids. We just had a fight. I remember we were watching the basketball team practice, and we just, no holds barred, said whatever it is that we had been afraid to say about how we felt hurt or resentful for the other person. It was the most amazing thing because it was like a cloud lifted, and we were both able to really see each other so much more clearly. Now, that was an example of a full expression of a way in which we sort of got rid of all this backlog, but I'll tell you, it didn't solve everything because there was still tension in our relationship. We still approached life very differently, and we were both extremely competitive. So this is what we did. At the end of every day of working together, I would go and take a run. And it was usually I'd run for about an hour. And it was at the end of that run that I still had resentments about something that had been said or something he had done. We just knew that we would talk about that and we would work that through. And I would call him, and it ended up being one of the most important relationships in my young adult life, and ended up naming my son after him. So let's turn to our step number 7. And this is about getting support. Meaningful relationships being able to have those is the result of making a very concerted effort, a commitment, dedicating yourself to wanting more in your relationships, more intimacy, more joy, more love. It is a skill. It is something that with coaching, you can accelerate the process, accelerate your learning, accelerate the likelihood that you're going to be able to have the meaning and satisfaction. One of the things that I would really encourage you to do is we would like to, for those of you that are listening to this webinar, we would like to offer you a complimentary 30-minute coaching session. If you were to come in to do that, it would be worth around $100. And we would like you to get a taste today for having the kind of support. This is the picture I would love for each of you to take advantage of this opportunity. There's going to be another slide that comes up where what I would like you to do is to think about if you were going to have one of these 30-minute sessions, when would be the best time for you to do that? Because we would love to offer that to you. Morning, afternoon, evening, weekend, whatever it is. Just pick one of those. But what I would love to have you do is to think of a relationship that you would like to work on. Identify that relationship and then think about setting up a session today. Set up one of your sessions. Express your interest and your desire to do that. And then take advantage of using some of these tools and some of these techniques. We've just given you a taste of being able to do that. And see how you could be able to, in very short time, experience much more meaning and satisfaction. And so we want you to know that that is available to you. You let us know that that's something that you would like to do, and we will contact you and set that up and get that thing moving. Really, decide today. Just commit yourself to taking advantage of that, and we would love to support you, in that process. So a little bit just, to sort of close, I'd just like to again tell you the Center for Christian Life in Richmond, we are located in the North Shore of Chicago. We have over 50 years of experience within our staff. We are very, very interested in helping you develop and improve your relationships, your relationship with yourself, with others, and with God. we focus on really helping people of all different faiths be able to take advantage of the cutting edge, training principles, methodologies of both psychology and the Christian faith. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful to be with you. Please watch for other opportunities. We are going to be doing webinars on a regular basis. And again, watch for the launch of my new book, Grappling with God. You can get a free download of the first chapter and some other tools on www.grapplingwithgod.com. Please sign up for that, and thanks for joining us.